I'm going to spread it around, though. This is Lowell Whiteman, your host of 360 Performance. Every Friday, 11 a.m., talking to people that bring new ideas and strategies to the areas of performance and performance enhancement. And one of those components that are important to performance is leadership. Well, today, the word leadership, I think, takes on a whole new definition and reaches into areas I don't think it expected to reach into because it's influenced by a health emergency. And it's not a health emergency just at home with the sniffles and a little cough or cold. It's a health emergency that's affected the world. And I'm interested in knowing about how leadership has been impacted by those health emergency guidelines that are coming to us through administrators at sports centers, franchises in the professional ranks. And one of the experts that I've relied on over the years to talk to me about leadership and the culture of sport and how they deal with leadership guidelines is Jeff Jensen. Jeff Jensen is an author and expert on leadership issues related specifically to sports. He goes into campuses in the college and university settings and helps them develop programs and strategies for engaging their athletes about their own personal leadership, but then extends that to talking to captains and coaches. Well, we're going to add another C to that list in culture. How do coaches and captains deal with the cultural changes that they're going to have to adapt and adjust to based on what's going on in our world today? One of the things I do every week is set up a quote, and one of the quotes, the quote this week for our captains and coaches is from, you'll love this, Jeff, it's Nietzsche, and it's this quote: "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." So we've got to have that why as the coaches have to deal with the how. I thought that was appropriate for today, especially when you've talked about commitment and making commitment to strategies that are going to move the needle forward as leaders. So Jeff Jensen, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for participating. And just kind of talk to me a little bit about those challenges that you're hearing from team captains, coaches, administrators, the leaders that are going to have to face the realities of what we're having to face right now with this health emergency and the pandemic we're facing.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the chance to be with you and your listeners here today. And for everybody, it's this uncertainty in terms of, what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, how is it going to happen. And I think that's, until questions get answered, a lot of people are in this state of limbo. And you've got a choice there. You can just kind of flounder while you're waiting for it all, or you can say, okay, yeah, this is less than ideal, but we can still take advantage of this time. We can get better. We can look at our program. We can still work out on our own. We can connect with each other, which I know a lot of coaches and programs are doing. They're connecting with each other online. I've been a part of a ton of those workshops or meetings, whatever you want to call them, where groups are getting together and looking at their culture and trying to get better. And I've been running some courses during this whole time too. So we had over 130 coaches looking at their culture, analyzing it, and that went so well. We've got another one coming up where coaches and captains will get together, and we have a leadership team course that will start in early June. And that's what I think people are trying to do, is take advantage of this downtime and get better and stay connected and pick up new ideas. And I hope, hopefully then whenever we get going again, it will be an opportunity to not just get started, but get started at a better level and a higher level than maybe you would have had you not had this opportunity.
So you've talked a little bit about the mindset, Jeff, that you're putting in place with those coaches, administrators, team captains, if you will, and as they extend those messages into the team dynamic. So what are you seeing with what as the key component of tickling the mindset about the inevitability of change that's coming that they've never experienced before? Social distancing, perhaps. Why do we have to do this, and how are we going to deal with this? Kind of paraphrasing the Nietzsche quote, and looking at then the players and saying, when you run out of this locker room or out of this dugout or out of this sideline, you're not going to see a lot of faces in the stands. Now, some sarcastic athletes would say, well, we never saw that anyway, so why is it any different? But at the bigger arenas and the places that you've interacted with in the past, they're going to be kind of shocked at that, even though they've been told up front. How do you prepare for that as a leader?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you get back to the intrinsic value of why you play the game. Yes, there may be some people who play for other people and want that notoriety and want those fans cheering and getting excited, and that's a fun part of the game. But I think for everybody, it's almost an opportunity to reconnect with that pure love of the game and going out in the backyard and playing with friends and doing things kind of at that level, and understanding that we're still doing this now for ourselves, for each other, and our goals can still be in reach. It's just going to be a different setting of what we have there. And a lot of focus is a choice. Do you want to choose to focus on this, or do you want to choose to focus on that? And I think that's what leaders help people do, is rather than looking at the obstacles, they shift focus over to the opportunities. And that's what I think is so important for leaders to have in mind, are what are the opportunities? Yes, there are obstacles. We need to acknowledge those, but what are the opportunities in this, and how can we focus on those and make the best of those?
So in your statement of the opportunity, you've also thrown the first challenge out to commitment. Coaches are going to have to deal with, the team captains are going to have to deal with that the varying levels of commitment to the opportunity. You said you have an opportunity to really validate your commitment to the game, but you're going to be challenged by it because the environment has changed. The scenery with which you are playing in is going to be altered. Now, let me give you some examples of that. You've probably been watching social media like I have, and one of the things I watch is what Peter Blackburn sends me every once in a while from CBS Sports about what he notes. Well, one of those things he notes are challenges that other athletes are making with one another as they've got this idle time to learn and to do things. Well, Brady and Manning went after each other on social media and challenged each other about the game as it is and what it means to them. And then they extended it into a golf challenge that's coming up on May 24th. Now, I think this is all wonderful and good, kind of tongue-in-cheek humor and fun, but kids are watching this stuff. I'm wondering if the challenge of the commitment should be altered a little bit by those emblems of the sport. That maybe they should be coming out not so serious, still fun and lighthearted, but still addressing the athletes and saying, hey, I'm having fun with my family. I'm using social media as an outlet. And I'm wondering if you think that there are better ways for those athletes, those icons of the sport, to represent their commitment so that they present a challenge to these kids that's optimistic and rewarding for the sport.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something. I mean, if you look at just how sports starved we are as a society and athletes as well. I mean, you look at The Last Dance and how many people have watched that, the NFL draft, the WNBA draft, all of those things. There's definitely a hunger to get back after it and try to utilize this opportunity. And I think if the icons in sport can try to use this in a positive way to be out there and be visible and be those role models that they are, then I think a lot of today's youth and coaches as well can learn something from them, can stay inspired, can keep that hope alive, and can, as we said before, not just let this situation get the best of them, but get them involved and engaged. And, one of the best things, athletes love challenges. And anytime you can be challenged by somebody that you're respecting, or even, one of the things that we talked about, in meeting online with some of the leaders that we meet with, they talk about different apps where they can look at in terms of how far distance they've run and things like that. And they can put the rest of the team on that app, and now they can watch, okay, my teammate did how many miles yesterday and how many miles did they do this past week, and where am I on that list in terms of am I in the top three, am I in the bottom? So it's a way to keep those competitive juices flowing. I think that's really helpful.
What, interaction is going to be limited. It's going to be like you and I are doing right now. It's not going to be face to face. And there's an adjustment, I think, by a lot of athletes to that reality. What are you recommending to coaches and athletes about enhancing the interaction, bringing more to the social media pathway to interaction? I know I've seen dance parties, I've seen pizza parties in a virtual way, but some of those aren't as purposeful to the intent of, because look, we've got volleyball, tennis, fall baseball coming up, both at the high school and collegiate levels, and in training and prep, it's got to be a question mark for the Division I for sure. Talking Division II and Division III coaches, they don't have the same contact time that they can have. So at the higher levels, these coaches got to be going, not just scratching their head, they got to be shaking a little bit about how well prepared are we going to be. So what do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things, and I've fortunately been involved in some. Pitt softball not too long ago, I was a part of their whole team meeting, and we talked about a lot of things they're wanting to take their program to the next level. So some of the things that we looked at was where was their program's mentality, and we had them rate that and discuss where they thought they were. Where was their program's culture in terms of developing that high elite culture of high standards and great core values? And again, we had them rate, talk about where do you think you are and where do you need to be, and then talked about execution, which is important now that they have to be out there executing their training plans and executing their lifting and conditioning and all of that. So we looked at that. So that was Pitt softball. And then yesterday I worked with Concordia Lutheran. It's a high school in Tomball, Texas, and worked with their leaders. And that's what a lot of coaches are doing, is they're getting their leadership group together. And we looked at their leadership and how they were stepping up and influencing not only each of their classes, but the whole team. And then there's a lot of teams that basically will pair people up with a teammate and say, okay, if you're going to do whatever our training regimen is, pull up your phone and use FaceTime or your Zoom or whatever technology you want to use, and set the phone there, and you guys are going to train together. Yes, you're not there physically, but you can see the other person doing the training that you're doing, and they see you, and it's a way to hold each other accountable and keep that commitment going. And then you can rotate partners every week or so that you're checking in with a group, or you could even do a whole group thing if you want to do it that way as well. So it's all these kind of creative ways of using technology to stay connected and hopefully assure that people are doing the things necessary, because everybody's crossing their fingers that we're hopefully going to get a fall sports season in, and maybe even somewhat of a summer something in. But we know all too well that when that starts up, if people haven't been doing things, they haven't been in condition, they aren't in shape, or they have lost a lot of muscle, that's going to catch up with them. You're going to spend the first 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks trying to build that base back again.
Jeff, are you seeing an enhancement of some of the more basic skills we have? Like, one of my segments is called skills, but it's a camouflage for the 5 senses. Are you seeing better listening skill development, better verbal communication skills? Visual acuity is limited somewhat, but you're still trying to interact with your teammate in a lifting program or conditioning. And I'm wondering if you're sensing kind of a need to get more of that, and coaches recommending to their athletes, slow down, there's a 7-second delay, social media has these certain quirks to it that they're now finding, oh my gosh, my listening has to be better. Oh, I have to be a better, look at things a little bit more clearly and use the technology to help me with that.
Yeah, I think, it's giving everybody an opportunity to look at things maybe that hadn't been examined before, and to learn things that hadn't been examined before. And it's a lot of these intangible things that you're talking about that make a big difference in championship programs, but a lot of times are assumed or glossed over. And now you're having the opportunity to really examine these things and see where are we, where am I on these things, and what can we do to take advantage of this downtime? I mean, as I mentioned before, I had this course and we had 130 coaches that for the first time are really looking, okay, do I have core values? And most coaches have them, but they're locked up in their head. But they've never really told their athletes. I asked them, I challenged them all. I asked every one of your athletes what your core values are. What would they say? And, for most it would be like, oh, I don't know, I guess maybe hard work, or I guess we should win, or something like that. You go to North Carolina women's soccer, they will tell you all 12 core values that program has off the top of their head, because it's been something that's been enculturated into them. It's something they evaluate themselves and each other on. The top 3 people who exemplify those core values win an award each year and are acknowledged for really living those core values. So, it's all an opportunity, I think, for everybody to really look at, hey, we say this is important, but do our kids really understand what our program is all about and why we do what we do?
Well, you as usual, you're right on track with the synergy with me here, because we're going to talk about the book a little bit,
okay.
A book that's been around for quite a while, but you have wrapped it with other focused ones, one for captains only, and dealing with culture. But this is the mainstay, and the exercise in this, I want to let everybody know that the Team Captains Leadership Manual is used across the country by many major programs, NCAA Division 1 to 3, as well as in some businesses. But the point I want to make about this book is it is not just an easy read, it's a focused read on things that really progressively through a very A to Z timeline of starting with commitment, and you've got a whole graphic of that for talking about commitment. And I want people to know that Jeff is using technology. He's online with sessions, so just check on his website, Jeff, jeffjensen.com. Make sure it's JANSSEN.com, Jeff, JEFF, jeffjensen.com, and check out his schedule for when he's going to be presenting this. You can't start soon enough. In my world, when I'm talking to athletes on a one-on-one basis with mental conditioning that I do, I reinforce the things that are essential for Jeff's classes, and that's the listening and the being attentive to being focused in that moment, staying in the now is important, especially now, because not everybody is as technologically adept as they think they are. You're not using your disposable thumbs all the time with this interaction. It's setting up a camera and making sure it's properly positioned so that your teammates can see you out the back of your garage as you lift the paint cans or have the bands that you're stretching. So I'm going to use this as a segue, Jeff. Are you getting any feedback from coaches and teams about, are they sending stuff to their kids? Are they the kids that don't have bands or don't have certain things so that they are properly prepared to have a norming of equipment that they're going to work with at home?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to do everything that they can to take advantage of this opportunity. And as we said, whether it's physical training and things that they're doing and trying to keep people connected there, or the mental or cultural stuff that we've been doing. When we started with our first class with coaches, a lot of them said, hey, I'm meeting weekly with my leaders or with my team, and I want some material, some content that's going to connect with them, that's really going to help us go to that next level. So what I was doing is I was basically teaching the coaches, okay, here's something you can do when you look at your culture, and here's an evaluation you guys can use as a staff or as a captain group or even your whole team. Here's how you can facilitate that discussion then and all of that. And then they're like, well, yeah, we like that. Can we bring our leaders in as well? So that's what I said with this next class that we're doing is going to be a coach-leader combo, where I'm going to share some different concepts. They're going to rate themselves and utilize all this. And then we're either right after the class or sometimes later in the week, because we're doing it on a weekly session, they can then take all this info and say, okay, this concept applies to you and we need to get better here. So I think what they like about it is it gives them something that's very practical that they can use to get better during the week, to work on some of these intangible things, and they can then customize it and personalize it to their particular team. So that's what I've seen the coaches want is, okay, what are some real good things that we can do to apply these things to our team to keep us thinking about these things. And hopefully then we're going to be that much better whenever we start up again.
Jeff, when does that class start for that combo class?
Yeah, so it's June 1st. It's going to be 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we've already got like 10 different. You can either sign up. What we're saying is it's a coach and captain thing, but most people, as you know, don't have captains set right now.
Right.
It's just more of a leader term. So those kids that you anticipate could get that captain one, or even those young freshmen and sophomores that do a great job leading themselves, and you think, hey, maybe a year or two from now, they could be our team leaders. So we want everyone who has a leadership influence or voice on the team, including the coaching staff. And at the college level, strength coaches are important and athletic trainers are important, and all those people, support staff wise, play a role in this. We're basically wanting all of them to get together, share their voice, share their opinions, and figure out how can we collectively lead our team. And I think it was Coach K who once said, you don't need a leader, you need a leadership team. And that's really what we're looking to build, our layers of leadership, not just the head coach or the assistant coach or the senior leader, but we want leaders at that sophomore level. We want leaders who are the strength coaches. We want all these different leaders to be on the same page, co-leading the team, co-putting the culture together, co-holding people accountable versus just, hey, well, that's coach's job, but we'll wait for him to yell at somebody for not doing what they should be doing, versus, hey, this is our program, this is our team, this is the standard we've set. You need to hit that standard, and this is coming from all of us, not just me.
Yeah, that's an important concept that is constant with me about telling players, find the connections, find the intersections. When a strength and conditioning coach says something to you, are you in your brain matching that up with what the trainer is doing with your rehab or your ankle wrapping to prevent you from spraining it again? And how does that relate to a position coach talking to you about the X's and O's, so that you're connecting as a player all of those intersections? But it starts with the leadership. It starts with that cognitive processing through things. So this is my segue, Jeff, into kind of the use of technology. So when you're setting these up, are you using kind of the classroom formats that some of the platforms allow you to do? You do the broad connection, and then you bring people into different classrooms during your sessions. And what's the platform of choice for you?
Yeah, I mean, the platform of choice, just like we're using here, is Zoom. And so it's been really effective for me, and we've used that. And what I end up doing is I will send evaluations, handouts, different worksheets ahead of time so that people have those, encourage them to print them out or certainly use them online if they want to. And then as we go through, it's a very interactive kind of workshop. And I'm asking people questions and asking them to rate certain things. So they're getting their viewpoint down and they're getting their kind of thoughts on it and putting it together in their unique perspective. And then what we do right afterwards, most people, because we'll have a ton of different people, we'll have them get their own Zoom, or whether they want to use Google Hangouts or whatever works best for them. Most of them have already established these things. So they will then take all of their individual ratings and viewpoints and then get together as a group, and I'll kind of have an outline of questions then that a coach can use and say, okay, when we looked at rating our team's commitment level, where did we see ourselves? How many people do you really feel like are committed or compelled? And what is that percentage? How does that look compared to where we would like to be and where Jeff showed us would be, where a championship program would be? And if it's not, which it is usually not for about 80% of teams, what are we going to do as a leadership team to start to close that gap? And that's what I do a lot of, is kind of, where are you? Where do you want to be? Why is there a gap there? And what can you do as leaders, after I talk about different strategies that I've seen national championship teams use to close those gaps or be at a higher level? What are you going to do now as coaches, captains, leaders to start to get more close that gap to where you are now, to where you need to be if you say you want to be a conference championship team or a state championship team or a national championship team?
So under the current conditions, Jeff, what are some of give me the one or two of the top questions that coaches and teams are asking you that have gaps for them now that they didn't in the past perceive there being a gap at all. But now under current circumstances, they're kind of a little nervous about that. And then what are you recommending as solution sets or strategies for shortening that gap up?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we look at a lot, especially when it comes to culture, is where's your team's focus on results and really taking advantage of the off season and attacking the weight room and doing all those important things that a highly committed team would do. So they would rate their focus and emphasis on results. Another area that we would look at are relationships. Do we have a bond with each other? Do we understand each other away from the field or away from the court? And are we willing to have those difficult conversations with each other? So they'll do those different ratings. And, we're hoping if we use a 10 rating scale, we're hoping to get up in that 8, 9, 9, ideally 10, 10 range in most cases. But when a lot of teams look at themselves, we're like, we're probably at like a 6, 6 right now in terms of 6 on results, 6 on relationships. And we'll see, well, where do you want to be? Well, we'd be a lot better. We'd love our culture. We'd probably have a lot more success. We were at least at 8, if not 9 or 10. And then we start looking, okay, where's the bigger gap? Is it a bigger gap between your team's focus on results? And how are you as leaders going to embody those results and that intensity and work ethic and commitment level? And then how are you going to encourage and enforce that from your teammates? So it's all these kind of different aspects and avenues and giving them that opportunity to really customize it to their particular program, where another group might be, we're strong on results, but relationships, people kind of feel used. They don't really feel cared for or appreciated. Our subs don't feel like, they mean a whole lot to this team because for whatever reason. So how can we connect with some of those people and let them know they're an important part and they can still have a role, even though it may not be a starting role for the team?
Let's focus a little bit on the coaches for a moment. Not that it's away from the team, but many coaches at the high level of Division I play or large high school programs and JUCO programs are dealing with administrators. They are an administrator more than they are an X's and O's coach. They have staff and position people to take care of that. So are you hearing questions about gaps that coaches are feeling related to that administrative involvement or specific insights from administrators about anticipating what the season is going to be looking like? Does their locker room behavior change at all? Does the weight room behavior change at all? Will there be mandates? I envision campus security standing outside the weight room door, only allowing so many people in, and red X's on the floor for 6 foot, distancing. And that may be extreme. I hope it is. But what are you hearing, and what would you say to them to manage those emotions?
Yeah, and for most everybody right now, I think everybody's kind of speculating and starting to guess what it might be. But I think until there's more definitiveness, I guess, for lack of a better word right now, of knowing what's going to happen, all of it is just trying to plan for worst case scenario all the way to best case scenario and everything in between. So, I was talking to a college coach the other day, and she said that, a lot of schools she's hearing are looking more toward July 1 to really understand whether or not we're going to be moving forward and having people at school, but her school is going to be more June 15th, and how that 2 weeks can make a big difference a lot in some of the recruits that she's planning on coming in, but may not come in if that decision isn't made. So, there's a lot of flux still going on that I think it's okay. I need to understand what is the worst case scenario, what is the best case scenario, and just be ready for all of those things. And I think that's where, as coaches and leaders, you're trying to make the best of it. You're trying to let's assume that we are going to start the season as normal, because we need to have people ready at that point. Now, if they tell us something different later, we can make that adjustment, but we should probably operate as if we are going to start as normal, because you don't want to be caught if you weren't preparing for that. So I think that's what most coaches are doing right now is preparing as if it were going to be normal, even though they know that is just right now one of many possibilities that might happen.
Yeah, my NCAA coach discussions with basketball and football coaches is they're saying two very optimistic things. I'm seeing a lot more film than I've ever seen before, and I'm doing a lot of sketching of X's and O's and being very creative in that planning process. And then there's a lot more exchange of that activity amongst the coaching staff, and not just with their own team. I've talked to everything from Division III and up coaching staffs, and they're actually interacting with other sports to help them manage the emotion and the tension that can be set in. If you don't reach out and communicate, you're going to find yourself in a very deep black hole of emotional distress. And regretfully, I've had a few of those calls as well. But to say the least, there are some expansions of one's cognitive processes. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the things that you're looking to more often than you expected you would in your book about those exercises, those templates, those that they're helping people kind of organize their thinking so they can manage the emotions? I mean, there's just a lot. The competitive spirit gets really emotional when they're not challenged and moving around.
Right. Right. And I think, as you're saying, in essence, a lot of coaches and athletes have almost been given this forced sabbatical. It may not be a full year or a full season, but I've had through the years, as I look at coaches that I've interacted with, and whether it was a coach just getting burned out and taking a year off, whether it was a coach who was relieved of their duties because the AD wanted to go in a different direction. I've had a lot of coaches who had sabbatical or years off, and it's tough when they first have it, but for most of them, they'll look back and say, boy, that was one of the best development experiences I could have had. And a lot of them do go and talk to other coaches from other sports, or if they at that time were able to travel around and go watch a practice or sit in on a coach's meeting of somebody else. It's just amazing that they get to see the game, they get to see coaching and leadership from a perspective that they had never had before, and they got so much better because of that. So I think it's the same thing here, that if they can use this forced sabbatical of however many months it's going to be to break the mold of the rat race that they had been on, of recruiting, of scouting, of game prep and film and all the things that they've been doing, it's broken up that routine a bit, and it's given them an opportunity to see things differently. And, that's probably the best part of my job, and certainly what you do as well, is we get to see all these different programs and all these different coaches and all these different cultures. I mean, we go to one athletic department and you get a chance to see 20 plus some different ways of running a practice or of scouting or all these things. And that's what hopefully makes us unique and hopefully valuable, is that we've seen so many different ways of what works, and we can show you this is why it works. And we've also seen a ton of, oh my goodness, that does not work. No wonder why this team is struggling. No wonder why people are transferring out. No wonder why everybody's rolling their eyes when the leaders start trying to talk and telling people what to do. So it's very clear you learn that as well. And that's what I think coaches are trying to do, is break out of the mold. Most coaches, they probably play for a few different coaches and may have been an assistant coach here and there, but for the most part, they've probably seen, maybe 5 or 10 different coaches throughout their career in terms of philosophies, styles, all of that they were embedded in. Well, you and I, if you add that up, however many teams times however many schools times however many years, I mean, it's hundreds and thousands of teams that we've seen. And you see patterns of what works, and you see patterns of what is dysfunctional. So hopefully that's what we can bring to the table, our recognition and models and strategies that help those coaches who want to get better and maybe break out of there. They're always wondering, why do we always get to one level but can't seem to get beyond that level? well, it's these 2 or 3 things that the people at that level, they're doing. You just aren't doing those things right now, and you got to relook at your program.
And the attention to those details is uber higher than it ever has been before, because I think of that sabbatical mindset, and that they're looking at not just the place they're standing in this moment, but because they have the time there. And I'm loving that, because usually I get, coach, you got 15 minutes to tell the team exactly what they need to know. And I tend to get 30 or 40, but it's always that crunch. And now I'm getting way more time to focus on the details, but they're asking about it rather than me having to initiate the conversation. Now, with that thought in mind, Jeff, the use of resources, have you seen a change in the use and application of resources, both financial and physical, to the things you're asking them to consider? And how is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, we've got fortunately, our orders for our different resources, whether it's the captain's manual and going through that. We've got a new one called What It Takes to Win Championships, where you start to help people understand all that. Our responsibility and accountability manuals are doing well. So you're having coaches doing these book study things, either with their leaders or with their whole team, depending upon which aspect they want to work on and how many people they want to have involved in it. And it's good because they're going through it on a systematic basis. And all these resources, I think, are designed to bring up these intangible factors and have very, as you said, focused and intensive conversations about these things that really matter and impact the program. So yeah, fortunately, I think people are wanting to do, it's that human nature and it's that competitiveness of coaches. I can't be out on the practice field, or we have to be modified in what we do, but how can we get better? And here's a good way to get better in these areas that, as you said, most of the time the focus is certainly on the physical aspects or the X's and O's, but that is limited to some degree now. So they're wanting to do something, and the thing that can be easily done during this time is this mental aspect, is this leadership aspect, or cultural aspect, or all three of them, really.
When you look at the future, Jeff, and the ability to get back into that team room and talk to team and coaches as a lecturer rather than remotely, are you gonna see a replication of the remote audience in the seats in the auditorium, where you're gonna see the strength and conditioning coaches with the athletes in the room with you more frequently than the past as might have been? I know for me, I'm getting more of that discussion about we want the coaches and the players together so that we can connect, have better intersection, and more power in those intersections.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important, and that's where this, as I said, this leadership team course, I polled the coaches who were taking my current course. I said, okay, you guys love this. What if I'm going to put another one together? Do you want it just for you? Do you want it just for your captains, or do you want it for both together? And overwhelming, it was both together, and it's a very powerful thing. We do in our leadership academies. We do have some separate groups where we have an emerging leaders group and a veteran leaders group and a leadership 360 group and then a separate coaches group. But usually at least 2 times a year, we will do a leadership team group where we bring all those layers of leadership together and really delve into one particular topic. And I was at South Carolina, one of my last visits before everything kind of shut down. And so many kids were coming up to me afterwards and saying, it was really good to have my coach here to hear some of these things. This was one of the best, most productive meetings we've had, because, we talk about you've got to be honest and you've got to be candid. You've got to work on some of these things, and you're getting now the sophomores' view of it. You're getting the seniors' view of it. You're getting the head coach's view of it. And now you're all saying, okay, I can see now why you're saying that. I didn't recognize that before. But now I can see why you're saying that, and okay, I might have to make a little adjustment here to make sure that this group is pulled in and brought in as much as I thought they were brought in, but now from hearing this from you, this is an adjustment we can make to be more inclusive on this. So that's the whole focus of this, is when you can respect and invite all these different mindsets and perspectives and influencers to the table and all work on these things together, now everybody has that similar mindset, and now we're moving forward this unified team versus coach is doing that again, and that's why this doesn't work. And maybe in 2 weeks he'll address it, and they just kind of sit back and watch the team doing this rather than them stepping up. And yeah, we talked about that yesterday, and here's how we're going to handle it, and I feel empowered to step up and do it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that segues into not the specifics about managing the emotions. So here's some examples that have come up for me. You know, a lot of kids, seniors as well as whole teams, had their career ended abruptly and not in their control. Had their graduations inexplicably, in some cases, not continued the way they want. For those who are more creative and adaptive, they did something in the backyard. You know, they managed the prom the way they could in the dining room or living room of their homes. But the emotions, the latent feeling of depression or lack of completion and finishing, like we talked about, the results side of things are still there. And I think coaches need to be aware of what are the components I need to look for in the eyes and the faces of my players and coaches that represent not that so much the depression, but this latent emotion that it never got managed because it never got spoken about. So I'm hoping that you've already heard it from coaches and players in those sessions about what wasn't finished. I need to process that. I need to get it out of my mouth, out of my mind, so that it doesn't sit in my craw when I'm dribbling down the court, or I'm getting up to the plate, or I'm getting underneath center, because that will cause a lack of performance in that moment if that's what you think about. So I'm wondering if you've heard of any of those kinds of feelings that need to come out, and the successes that you might have gotten because a coach heard the freshman, or no, better yet, heard the juniors hear that or say that and say, I don't want that to happen to me like my senior teammate had it happen to them. Or I felt really bad about, we were supposed to go to postseason. I mean, Wash University in St. Louis, they were on their way to postseason tournament. Is gone. And they're not a team that has a lot of scholarship dollars to spread around, and that postseason removal was a great recruiting tool for them. Can you imagine what happens with a Michigan or a Stanford or an Iowa when they've got bigger programs, bigger people, and the coach doesn't think about managing the emotions? So what are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, the example that I've been giving people is it's like every athlete had a catastrophic ACL at the exact same time.
Oh, that's a good one.
Everybody's season was just gone like that. And, it's hard when you see one of your athletes or one of your teammates have that happen too, and you think that their season is for sure done, and you wonder what their career's done. Well, it's basically every athlete and coach had that catastrophic ACL injury. And I think for everybody, or a lot of them, they start to appreciate more. It's so easy to take your athleticism for granted, your team for granted, the locker room, your fans, all the things that surround the sporting experience. And when these things are gone, you start to realize, boy, this was something special. And for all those kids that hated going to practice, we got to go to this weight room, and we got to do this. And now for a lot of them, what I wouldn't give to just have a normal season again, or just get back to some things. So, I think that in a way, hopefully will be a good thing. And as you're talking about, I was making some notes here. I think everybody likes to have some kind of not only physical closure or a calendar closure, but a psychological closure to things. The way things are supposed to end, or how I've seen things end in the past, I didn't get that opportunity. It was just kind of taken away from me. And somebody mentioned one time that emotions are like springs. And every time you try to shove down an emotion inside yourself, if you keep doing that, those springs are going to need to come out somewhere. And that's where I think if you can talk through some of these things and acknowledge some of the frustration or the disappointment or whatever it may be, some of those springs aren't going to be as loaded as they would have been originally. And now they're not going to come out in other ways when somebody's frustrated with the mom and dad brother, sister, roommate, you name it, and hopefully processing that this is, this is a disappointment and tough thing for everybody. But as you and I know, what sport is training for life. They're going to get a diagnosis or somebody that they love of a very serious injury, or somebody that they really knew well and were close to could tragically be taken. And it's all not what happens to you, as we teach everybody, but how you process it and how you react to it. And it's the same thing here, that you're learning that life isn't fair, but the thing you can't control is your attitude toward it, and is your effort toward it. And that's, whether it's anything that, any adversity that somebody has, it's always how do you respond to those things.
Jeff, that's very well said, and emphasizes things that you and I have experienced with as an injury, as an example. Those are the springs that come out that you don't control, but now everybody has this. Everybody has this emotional piece inside of them they have to deal with. And I'm very curious about what tools do coaches have for themselves to be able to help them identify the spring and gradually let it kind of unwind rather than just pop out of control. So I'm gonna be a little shameful here and do some infomercialing. One of the things I designed a while back was an app called Time to Focus that deals with those springs. It looks like a game, but it's a process to get through the thinking and make you think you're playing a game, but it releases the springs. It's a cognitive enhancement program called Time to Focus. It's on iTunes. It's free. Excuse me. It's free to play. And it allows people to compete with one another in different settings. So take a look at that. Time to Focus. I created it. Use psychology and cognitive theorems and theories to make it put it together, but it plays like a game. So it tricks the player into thinking they're having some fun, and we're getting something done that's very positive and optimistic for the player. In addition to that, considering the fact that we're talking about the impacts of a health emergency, a pandemic, if you will, a client of mine has offered me an opportunity to share with all of my fans out there. If you use the code 360PERF, 360 Performance, just like the show, 360 PERF, you can get a discount on all of their germicidal hand lotions and their disinfectants, as well as surgical masks. They have supply of them, and all you have to do is go to their website, avcare.com, and use that code, and you'll get a discount. And they are legit. They are a company that's really proactive in developing products that are alcohol free. So I don't have my cuticles getting cracked up, because I can't tell you how many times I've had to go into training rooms now with not a lot of people there, but I got to put lotions on. I got to wear a mask. I am politically correct with my bumblebees on my mask. So that's my shameful promotional things, but I'll be less than shameful and very proactive on. Check out Jeff Jensen on his website, jeffjensen.com, and sign up for the June 1st course if it fits you and your team as a coach or a captain, to share those ideas to enhance your resiliency, your ability to spring back if the springs have exploded, and be able to be reticent and resolved in your commitment to the team. Because I think there's going to be a new test or measurement of how resilient are you through this, because it's going to test the commitments of challenging programs on how well they're going to be able to respond to what's happening. And that's where our next segment is about process. What are the processes, Jeff, that you either are recommending or will continue to recommend to coaches and teams that are going to be essential to being prepared and matching the commitment that you talk about? But this is different times. You've not yet been physically challenged as a team as you normally would have been during this summertime off season. So what are going to be those processes that you need to be resolute in executing?
Yeah, I think, you're seeing right now which athletes are self-directed and self-disciplined and which ones are not and need that help and guidance and, encouragement slash enforcement with them. They need a detailed plan. They need somebody who's checking in on them. They need to have somebody who's probably tracking and reporting all those things. So it is understanding each of your athletes. And one of the big tools we use is our commitment continuum, where you have different levels of commitment. You have some people who are what I call compelled. They're not only going to get the job done, they're going to raise everybody else's level up. They're going to check in on them and hold them accountable. You have the committed people who will do what they need to do and certainly probably go above and beyond. And then you've got your compliant people who, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. I'll do it to that bare minimum kind of level. You have what I call your existent people who are just kind of there, and that's this time frame. If they don't have a lot of people checking in with them, or they're giving a bunch of freedom and latitude and kind of, okay, make sure you're ready. Well, that's not enough for this person because they're just going to kind of wait until they get some more information. And you've got your reluctant people who, I don't really want to do this workout right now. We don't even know when our season's going to start or if we're going to have a season. And then you got your resistant people who just are not bought in whatsoever. So I think it's really important for the coaches and certainly the leaders of the team to do an analysis of where everybody is on their roster, and then to understand, okay, some people are going to need some extra attention, some extra outlining of what this looks like, and some extra follow-up and accountability. And you're probably going to want to pair one of your people who's less committed with one of your more committed people. And they're the ones, okay, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 9 a.m., I'm going to call you. This is the workout we're going to do, and we're going to do it across from each other on video to make sure that we're getting these things done. So I think it's sometimes that level of specificity that needs to be done and look at. Otherwise, you're just kind of leaving it all to chance.
And for those of you who don't really know the processes that Jeff's referring to, go to his book because it's full of that profiling of the athlete, identifying who's that athlete that's get out there self-directed, self-motivated, and then the less to that degree of other athletes, and then creating processes with the help of Jeff's material and his guidance of matching them up. It may be captain with player, it may not be one player versus another. In my world, I take an even more in-depth cellular look at the matchups. I measure desires through an assessment process that when you take those numbers and put it into Jeff's process in identifying the partnering and the pairing up, as well as the team and cultural dynamics that Jeff takes you through, you get very precise information that has a high level of probability of accurately determining who's the guy you want to substitute when you need the ball back. Who's the person that's going to keep their head under control in an emotional setting? And what's the combination of when I need both of them on the floor or in the field at the same time? It's the planning beforehand and then the data to substantiate the validity and reinforce the choices. It's the days of coaches going from their gut are not the only way to measure the decisions and the reasonableness of it. I'll never discount the gut. The gut's good, but you need to respond quickly at the higher levels of competition. So if you're interested and you want a good intersection between what I do and what Jeff does, take a look at Jeff's material for sure in the book and join his session on June 1st. But also take a look at the RMP desire assessment, where I scientifically measure who are the players that give you what you need when you need it, and when are the ones that you need to know about. Well, I can't yell at Billy or Jilly, but I can yell at Bobby or Barbara because that's how they need to be motivated. But it goes to the quote we talked about, Jeff, earlier, the why and the how. You want to identify the why as a coach and a planning for your culture with the captains so that it aligns with the how, so that you know which players to partner with, so that you get that self-directed player connected with the one who needs to be told, needs to be guided, and needs to be motivated at a different level. Now, this may sound like I'm ending the show. We're getting close, but it's not. It's just my way of kind of brain dumping what you said to me so that we get to these final questions for today. And it's in the genre of process, but for you, Jeff, when you look at your culture, your family, your business, and the people that you interact with, what are you practicing on a daily basis that really defines how you adapt and adjust with the current conditions?
Yeah, I think being able to pivot quickly is a big part of it. Most of our programming was in person, where you're going to a school and you're interacting and you're, in front of a group or in front of a team, in front of individuals, meeting one-on-one. And, when things change quickly, we made a very quick pivot. And I think it's, that adaptability that coaches need to try to teach their athletes that things aren't going to go exactly the way you want. How do you adapt to that? Coaches have a game plan that all looks good, and then what was it, Mike Tyson? Everything looked great until you get punched in the face, and then you make those adjustments from there. So it was the same thing for us, and we had a ton of coaches who were approaching us saying, "Hey, we've got this downtime. We want to get better. What can we do?" So we made a quick pivot to offering these online programs. And fortunately, for us and hopefully the coaches as well, it was very well received enough that we're involving some others. So, that, I guess, adaptability is a big part of it, that hopefully is going to now serve a lot of coaches and programs and help them get better for the fall.
Let me ask a question to add to that a little bit. What have you done to add to the technology, or maybe your knowledge about technology, that you didn't think you needed, but now you do?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunately using Zoom here and there, but it was more of a, supplemental thing, or it was more an occasional thing as needed. And now it's a very big part of what we're doing. And as I said, I'm looking at different learning principles of, okay, how do we get handouts to people? How do we get them to interact and be involved in this? How do we get them to apply it? And then I also will have follow-up resources. So I will send follow-up links for those who want to go deeper into it, or a book list of other things that people can do, or other resource lists that they can look at as well. So it's become now, during this phase, the major mode of being able to connect with people. And that's where now we're utilizing it as our basic connection tool with the people that we have contracts with and serve and all of that, as well as those who want to get better during this time as well. So I think it's taken something that was maybe like a plan C or D and then moved it to plan A.
Yeah, many people reprioritize many things.
Right.
For me recently, it was upping the power and strength of my Wi-Fi, so that I'm prepared at home, at my home office, but at the same time, having the benefit of the studio, we've gone to multiple platforms. It's because it's demand and desire has increased. The other piece for me is really diving into the platform educational model, so I know when do I use a breakout room, when can I use a breakout room. I enhanced my contract with Zoom to add the webinar piece because it gives me more bodies that I can put into a class. But at the same time, I still want to be able to have what feels like a personal exchange, what feels like a connection with folks. But I'm like you, I've been using Zoom and Zoom-like materials for a long time. The thing for me that's most difficult is being economical, a better planner, because you know me, I can talk. So, and you're not shy on that either. So I got to kind of sculpt it in every once in a while to make sure that I don't overwhelm the 7-second delay in the communication and in sharing. So that's been beneficial for me. So what's the one thing you want to make sure that people walk away from today's session with you and I, for people to look forward to in the future, Jeff?
Yeah, I think what all of us do is we emphasize those intangibles that are so important to sports success. And, you have the physical aspects, you have the equipment, you have the X's and O's, all those things are undeniably important, but a lot of times those biggest differentiators and separators have to do with what's going on in here, has to do with what's going on in here, and how those X's and O's interact with each other and all of that kind of stuff. So That's what I think everybody is doing a great job of right now, is taking advantage of this downtime to explore those intangibles and get that much better when the physical aspect can be done in a larger group and hopefully a team setting.
Well, let me thank Jeff Jensen formally, a friend and colleague. I'm always grateful for his time with me. Jeff will reconnect soon. I'll be interested to have you see the film. I'll be sending you this via a Dropbox link so you can take a look at the video. But have a great day, everybody. It's a Friday, and at 11 o'clock every Friday, you listen to 360 Performance, where we talk about issues related to being your best and staying your best. Thanks a lot for the time you spent with me today. Have a great day, everybody. All right, Jeff, we're off mic.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. Hey, thanks a lot. Have a great day today, all right?
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care and